That's almost common sense to them, especially if they've seen it in everyday life. And in fact, if they have seen it in everyday life, all they're doing is taking something they already know and putting it on paper. And so you say, all right, let's see addition of 1. So it's time we take what you know, let's put it on paper, add this up. Oh yeah, they can understand that. Great, let's do addition of 10s now. All right, let's do addition of hundreds. All right, let's do addition of thousands. And in a couple hours, if that, you've taught what could have taken 4 years to learn. Do you understand what I mean by catching up? I don't mean to say that we're going to wait until they're 8 or 10, start them in first grade, and for 16 hours a day, you're just going to push ahead with all this academic study and finally get them caught up to where they could have been. No, I mean that we're going to allow the brain to develop naturally, teaching them through everyday life, practical skills, as the Lord has instructed that is what children should learn. And when it comes time to put it on paper, it will be simple and painless, and children will love learning. Remember, I mentioned last night that the early years are very important for spirituality, cause to effect reasoning, emotion, relationships, behavior management, language skills, memory, moral understanding, conscience development, character development. We know that the early years are very important for the development of spirituality. The right hemisphere, very important for spirituality. The early years are a critical window of time for the development of the right hemisphere. And if we pressure the left hemisphere through academics, we actually suppress the development of the right hemisphere. Do you think the devil knows what he's doing here? I think he does. I think he understands very clearly that if he can distract us from what is really important, such as the things on this list, and get parents to believe that we must Head Start children, we must teach them these things in the early years, he knows that he will bypass and he will get them through a period of time where it is critical that they learn these aspects. We should be focusing on these in the early years, waiting till the later years to learn the academics, and we will have fulfilled God's plan for early childhood. So again, the question is not whether they should be learning, but it's what they should be learning. Let's focus on spiritual and character development at an early age and leave the academics for later, because they'll learn much better later on. We read earlier, parents should be the only teachers of their children until they're 8 or 10 years of age. As fast as their minds can comprehend it, parents should open before them God's great book of nature. Here's a book that doesn't take two-dimensional vision. This one is good for the eyes. And a schoolroom, 8 or 10 years of age, until that age, it should be in the open air, amid nature's beautiful scenery and the most familiar textbook, The Treasures of Nature. Let me close up a little story that illustrates this whole concept quite well. When I, again, was in Africa, I had lots of great stories from there, and I presented this information. I opened it up for questions. Which, by the way, I'm more than happy to take questions. I know we have to finish up here, but if anyone would like to talk to me afterward, happy to. But I opened it up for questions, and a gentleman raised his hand. He was actually the principal of the school I was presenting at, a native man, a bushman. And he said, well, I didn't really have a question, but I just wanted to tell my story. I said, yeah, go right ahead. He said, well, I was a herds boy until I was 12, until I finally talked my dad into letting me go to school. Maybe he had a younger brother that grew up and could take care of the cows. I don't know what it was, but somehow he went to school. He said, and in 3 days, I figured out how to read. I said, 3 days? Yeah, 3 days. It wasn't that hard. So, wow, that's pretty neat. And he said, within 2 months, I was fully caught up with everyone. It came time to take the national exams, and my teacher wouldn't let me because I'd only been to school for 2 months. He said, I talked my teacher into letting me take those exams anyway, and he scored near the top of his school. And I said, wow, this guy is definitely a genius. I wasn't yet crediting it to God's methods. I said, well, thanks for that story. That's really interesting. He finished up. Another one raised his hand and said, well, I don't really have a question, just wanted to tell my story. I was a herds boy until I was 13. Finally talked my dad into letting me go to school, kind of like this other gentleman here, and was in school for 3 or 4 months. It came time to take the national exams. My teacher didn't want me to, but I talked her into it, and I scored near the top of the school. Wow, we got a couple of geniuses here. Another one raised his hand. Well, I didn't have a question, just wanted to tell my story, and I kind of like these gentlemen, was a herds boy until I was around 13 and went to school, and I heard the same story again. 5 times I heard that story. And just really impressed upon me that we have very little faith often in God's methods. God knows what is best for children. He says they should be free as lambs, out of doors, learning from the book of nature, studying the Bible, and all these very important character development things. And we say, but that doesn't work in today's society. We need to be doing the other things. I saw it work. I saw the examples. They are actually expecting a lot out of these students in the schools, so it wasn't like this was subpar to what we would find in the U.S. here. And I saw very clearly that when we follow God's methods, it strengthens the mind so powerfully that when it comes time for other forms of learning, they'll do quite fine. They can grasp it so much more quickly. And these are very strong, good-thinking men that I was speaking with here. Excellent thinkers and leaders in their communities and at the school. So again, I just want to stress the point that God's methods always work. And we've seen a lot of research that backs up just a couple of isolated paragraphs in Christian education. But we have reams of other studies, other counsel in the spirit of prophecy. Books and books and books. We have more counsel on education than any other topic in the spirit of prophecy. Are we going to wait until the research catches up, until we say, oh yeah, I think we should go ahead and do that? Or are we going to believe, basing on faith, that the Lord knows what He's talking about, and not wait for the science to catch up, but become the head and not the tail? Shall we do that? Sounds good. I think we have a closing hymn and then we'll pray.